Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom documentation and process improvement and tailor-made business systems so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Jody Grunden. He is the co-founder and CEO of Summit CPAs, and where they provide virtual CFO services and third-party audit for benefit programs. And Jody, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And Jody is going to tell us his amazing story about how he scaled his business and basically made it fully online in 2011. So you basically started working from home before working from home was popular, probably before that term was even coined. And you managed to take your firm from being a basically actually having offices to being completely virtual and expand nationwide and international as well by using systems and by being able to scale the company. And we're going to hear all about it. But before we go into it, I would like to give a shout out to David Castillo from Jetpack Workflow, because he's the one who introduced us. So thank you, David, for that. And now, Jody, so did I miss anything in the introduction?
Nope, I think you nailed it around the head.
Okay, good. So let's hear about the history. You have a great story, how you started from a brick and mortar place to going fully virtual. So tell me a little bit about that period of time. How did it happen?
For sure. So we're going all the way back to 2002. And that's when we started Summit CPA Group. And it was just at that point, it was my partner, Adam Hale, and myself. And we were brick and mortar. We had an office space, and we wanted to do things a little different, a lot of different ways. One was, we wanted to make sure we didn't dress like a CPA, with the button-down shirts and at that time there were suits and all that kind of stuff. We wanted to be more relaxed. Another thing was we wanted to bill on a flat fee basis or a value-based billing. So we didn't want to do things on an hourly basis, which is what most CPA firms did at that point, and a lot of them still do today. A lot of attorneys are doing the same thing. And then we wanted to actually make something that was repeatable, something that was bigger than us. All the way from our very first beginning when we called it Summit CPA Group, it was a group of two, just two of us. But we knew we wanted to make it bigger. And so we had to put the processes in place in order for that to happen. Something that, we're a big fan of E-Myth and by Michael Gruber's great book. And that was something I gave to Adam and said, day one, read this book. This is what we're going to actually put in play. And we did. And so everything that we did from the very beginning was a repeatable process. All the way through to in 2004, we thought, we want to give the client a little bit something more than just a tax return or a financial statement. They called it write-up work in the accounting, verbiage. We wanted to give them something that they could actually help with to control their business. And so we started really focusing on forecasting. And forecasting was a big thing at that point. What was a big thing today? A lot of firms do not provide it. And unfortunately, that's what people really wanted. Different modeling events. What influences my business to actually grow, not only on the revenue side but on the cash side? What is my cash going to look like in November? Here we are in June. What's it going to look like in November? A lot of people don't know. Well, with forecasting, you can actually dive into that and figure out the non-financial indicators. Non-financial things like how many trucks you're going to push through if you're a garage, or how many hours you're going to bill if you're a service company, and kind of fill that in and figure out, hey, here, based on this and based on the team, here's what we are forecasting to go out on the revenue side, not only on the top line revenue, but also, on the bottom line, and then again, flowing through the cash. So we started really focusing on that. Clients loved it. And our business continued to grow, and it grew really, small at first, and because it was a new concept. We called it virtual CFO services back in 2004, and it was something that we could put on the internet real quick and get a #1 ranking in Google because no one's looking for it. So our name was up there, and still is. Anywhere in the world, anywhere in the United States, at least you Google virtual CFO services, we pop up, and it's because we were right there at the beginning. And so that was really important to get that name recognition. But again, nobody was wanted the service, and so it was a really slow learn because again, virtual meant that for us, it meant that we weren't going to go to your office. We were going to do it, from our office. At that time, it was through the telephone, and we had some really outdated video conferencing way back then. And then what happened in about 2011, things really started to flip around a little bit. Video conferencing became a little bit better. And with that, we thought, at that time, we thought, hey, let's really start seeing if we can actually promote this to people outside of Portland, Indiana, because that's where our brick and mortar office was at that time, because we weren't virtual at that time, but we were providing that service. And so we reached out, basically a company out of Rhode Island reached out and said, saw us on the website. And it was a web design company. We thought they were trying to sell us a website, and they weren't. They were actually looking at our service. And with that, we thought, well, hey, this would be a great opportunity. And they said, hey, would you be interested in being our CFO? And we're like, yeah. And then the next question was, do you have to be out here in Rhode Island? And we're in Indiana. And I asked them, do we have to be in Rhode Island? Do you want us there? And they're like, not really. And they go, well, of course we want to be out in Rhode Island. So it was our first client that was actually virtual away from us, where we couldn't actually physically go to their office, which was kind of cool at the time. And with that, then we're like, okay, how are we going to do this so that we can actually grow and blow this business up? And so in 2013, that client just happened to be completely a distributed company, meaning they were completely from home, and they were that way from the beginning. It was a 60-person shop. And they were one of the first ever in the world to be virtual. And so we learned a lot from them, how to actually do it and how to do it successfully. And then gradually over time in 2013, we made the leap to actually provide these services, not only remotely, but actually having a remote team. And it was a struggle at first. I'll have to admit, when I first presented that to the team, that we were going to lose our brick and mortar office. Accountants love changes, as you know. Not really. They hate change. And with that, they told me that. And so it was like, they're like, there's no way we're going to do this. And I'm like, well, why can't we do it if, we're working with our clients this way? And they're like, no, we can't do it that way. And they gave me all the reasons you could think of, the internet, the collaboration, I'm an extrovert and not going to be able to see people and all this kind of stuff. And eventually it was kind of like I was getting a mini revolt. And I thought, hey, there's no way that I'm going to go virtual and lose my entire team. And at that time, we were about 18 people. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to keep our brick and mortar office. And for those that want to go virtual, that's great. And I remodeled the entire office, spent $100,000, knocked out all the walls, put some cool conference rooms. All the rooms had actually TVs in them. It was really a kind of a neat office space and neat office setup. But the only problem is it took 6 weeks. And at that time, no one was allowed in the office because of the construction going on. And the funny part about it was within 6 weeks, and like I said earlier, similar to the pandemic, what happened here, people figured it out. And once they figured it out, they're like, hey, this remote stuff's pretty cool. And, I thought, heck, this is great. And actually, out of 18 people, 14 of them decided they wanted to work remotely. And then 4 of them hung out back at the office for a short period of time, thinking there's no way they could do it. And eventually they also went remote. So it was one of those things that was kind of an accidental thing where, hey, I purposely wanted to do it. It didn't work. I spent $100,000, redid the office. And of course, everybody then decided at that point that they wanted to work remote. And after that, we hired completely outside of Portland, Indiana. And we have team members all across the United States. We have team members in India and the Philippines. And we're looking to expand into Canada. And with that, it allowed us kind of a cool thing where we could actually now work with anybody and provide these services to anybody. We've done that throughout the United States, and we have a few in Europe, and then a couple in South America, Central America, a ton in Canada. And so our client base is all across the United States too. So it went from a brick and mortar back in 2002 to now we've got about 65 people all throughout the world, kind of the world, on the Northern Hemisphere at least, and about 15 contractors that we have in India. So if you add that, probably about 80 people altogether, and providing CFO services for I'd say about 150 clients throughout the United States and the world.
That's incredible story, Jody. If we were doing this interview 2 years ago, that would be like so innovative, right? Like, wow, he actually made it that they can work from home. Now you were definitely anticipating or preparing or just being, it was just convenient, right? So it's kind of like you were definitely invented working from home before it was popular.
Yeah.
And I think it's very timely as people are looking, going back into the workforce, going back in person. What would it look like? So it's really good to hear that, your company grew and is successful by working from home,
Hmm.
and people got adjusted to it, right? So
Yeah.
what
And to
do
be
you
honest
do
with you,
to
I don't.
keep, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I don't think that if we were brick and mortar, I think we'd still be an 18-person shop. I really do.
Probably.
Yeah, the ability to actually hire outside of Fort Wayne, Indiana was huge because Fort Wayne's a decent sized city, 300,000 people. But to grow at the scale that we were growing, we needed to hire 2-3 people a year at that time. Now it seems like 8 to 10 people a year. So the growth is pretty significant. We wouldn't be able to hire people or get people to come to Fort Wayne. It'd be hard to get people, really good people, to come in such a quick manner. Whereas now we can hire people at a moment's notice anywhere in the United States, anywhere in Canada. And, with that, it is just very simple. It's very quick. And we can get the best person for the job, not necessarily the best person that's located in a specific geographic area. So it's made it really nice to get really talented people, really quality people to help out and provide the services we do.
Absolutely. And it also, you can hire people that align with your culture and not necessarily, as you said, the location. So it's not just the skill specific for that location, but it's also your culture, people that you like, people that really fit with your group. And
Yep.
I experience the same thing. I have employees that are all over,
Hmm.
and I have clients all over the globe. I mean, I have clients in Australia, in Europe, obviously all over the United States. And it makes a difference because that diversity, it really makes it's nice. It's definitely a nice thing that you can learn a lot from experience from different cultures, different people, and that just makes you better to deliver the service to your clients because you see a lot of things that you might not have seen with companies just in Indiana.
That's exactly right. It made it real. Again, the diversity is unreal. I mean, diversity in thought is something that you never really think about. If you're in a specific geographic location, you kind of think alike. Most people do, whether you're in California, whether in Indiana or Florida, people think alike. But when you bring people all across the United States and the world, it really kind of opens up. It opens up thought. It opens up experiences. It opens up a lot of great qualities that you'd want in a firm.
Absolutely. So, you're definitely a very extroverted, very friendly person, likes people. And by the way, I can't imagine you in a suit and tie. Well, maybe I can, but definitely I understand, you know, the concept. So how do you how do you manage working from home and not having that group dynamic and working in the office with others and collaborating face to face?
Yeah, it's a fairly easy concept, and so we started it back right away. Well, actually, not right away. So I would say probably the first month or so we were working, and we used GoToMeeting at that time. Now we're using Zoom, but it was a video conferencing. So when we popped on a meeting, we popped in a video conference, and we went in basically internal and external. And it was kind of cumbersome because you had to send invites out, and people didn't get invites, or you got invites late, or whatever. It was it was really hard to do. So when I was being interviewed for Forbes magazine through a company called Flex Jobs, they asked me, the question was, what virtual office are you using? And at that time, I had no clue what they were even asking. And so I'm like Googling virtual office, and they said, well, I go, what virtual office do you guys use? And they're like, oh, we use Sococo. And I'm like, Sococo. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. I go, that's what we're going to be using tomorrow. And with that, we implemented the very next day. And again, the accountants meeting changed. They loved it. We had no pushback at all. And so what it did, it gave you a platform that you could actually visually appear to be an office, little emojis that look like SimCity, if you know what I'm talking about there. And they had little offices and everything. And then what you could do is you could collaborate by screen sharing. So I could have my screen up, you could have your screen up. It was very easy. We're all on video. So I required everybody to be on video all the time. And when people say Zoom fatigue, I'm like, ah, whatever. We've been on Zoom and we've been on video all day long, every day, and I don't. That doesn't seem to be an issue with any of our team members at all. Actually, they prefer it. And the biggest thing about collaboration is when you can see people and you can see their eye contact. So important because if I were doing this over the phone, I may not even realize you're even on the phone and I'm talking and all of a sudden, oh, I got disconnected or whatever. Or you may be doing something completely different and I'm not knowing it and you're not paying attention. Or you just may not understand what I'm saying. And it's really easy with the facial expressions is to know, are you understanding what I'm telling you? And so all that's really important. And so when we actually do have our physical meetings, meaning that when we have our team retreats, when we all get together in a central location and get a chance to hang out with each other, it's not awkward, because we already know what each other looks like. We already know what our facial expressions are. We know what our mannerisms are. And it's no different. The only weird thing about it is you know how tall somebody is. And so, that's the only thing you don't know, right? Because you're only seeing them from the torso up. So
That's right.
that's the biggest difference there. And I think the video conferencing, hugely important. We have set meetings on a regular weekly basis. We have team meetings and we just make sure that we have fun stuff along with work stuff. And with that, it seems to work out really well. Retention rate's very good, and employees stay on for a long time.
That's great. So how often do you do your retreats?
We do an annual retreat. So we invite the entire team to an annual retreat, and that's once a year. And with that, it's generally at a really nice location. Like we went to Indianapolis one year, we went to California one year and did like a wine tours. And then now this year we're going to Las Vegas. So we're heading to Las Vegas in October. And so the entire team will be going and it'll be a really, really fun time. We also have a CFO retreat. So for all of our CFOs, we get together as kind of a leadership team there. And we have that once a year. We're heading to Las Vegas also for that one, coincidentally. And then the final one, we have our director retreat in which we invite all of our directors. We've got 5 of those. We have both them and their families to attend a retreat. And we're actually in the Bahamas for that. So we're going that in a few days to the Bahamas. So that'll be a lot of fun too. And again, all of them are structured for meetings. So we definitely have solid meetings and content we cover. A lot of it's team building. But the fun thing about the retreats is we're all virtual normally. And so people just love hanging around each other and going having a beer and everything. It's kind of funny because most team retreats that you're with or you're used to with on a brick and mortars, people will go and they're looking at their watch. They can't wait to get out. And then once the 5 o'clock hits, they're gone. And then you see them the next morning. With our retreats, it's the opposite. The people are there and they can't wait till 5 o'clock because they want to hang out with everybody. And so we have team dinners in which we break teams up, and so people get a chance to meet people they're not used to talking to in the groups of 6, and they'll meet with those people, and then we'll all head out to a bar or location afterwards and just hang out. And it's kind of funny. They're dragging the next day. They're coming in because they were up late last night. And so we purposely start the meeting at 10 o'clock. So it gives them plenty of time to recoup a little bit. And then we start the meeting all over again. So it's like 3 or 4 days we typically have with our team retreats, our director retreats, and also our CFO retreats, so that it gives them a chance to actually get a chance to hang out with people outside the office. Keep in mind that as a distributed company, we don't have facility costs, right? We don't have rent. We're not buying a building, nothing like that. And so we're spending that 3, 4, 5% a year, probably even more on these team retreats. So again, it's something that we feel is very important. And people just look forward to it. Very few people ever miss them. And when they do, they're pretty disappointed, maybe because they're having a child or something like that, something that would cause them to physically miss them. But they just love them.
That's great. So when you do staff meeting regularly?
Do I do staffing regularly?
Like staff meetings. So you meet with all the staff regularly?
Yeah. So our staff meetings are weekly. So we have a couple different department meetings that I meet with the department heads every Monday. And then as a team, we meet for 30 minutes. It's always 30 minutes and the entire team gets together. So the staff meeting is, again, virtual. We all log into Zoom or Sococo at that point in a platform. And then it's pretty light. So we just give announcements at the beginning. So and we talk about, we're really big into cybersecurity. So we talk about phishing and everything that we intentionally send phishing emails out to see if we can get people to push different levers for education purposes, because phishing is such a big thing right now on the cybersecurity side. And so we each bring up, hey, here are the 3 emails that went out this week. Nobody pressed them. High five, nice job. We usually have a wheel at the end of the year or end of the month that we'll do a random drawing for those, and everybody gets a ticket for it. for the amount of ones they flagged as they caught as a phishing email and they knew it was phishing. And then we'll give them like $100 Amazon card or whatever. But that's usually how we start the meeting out. And then it's usually a joke. We typically start with a joke of the day, and everybody's assigned for the next meeting. And then the jokes are pretty fun. Everybody has a great time. And then we have the fun facts, something fun fact about something, and it's pretty cool, the random stuff people come up with. And then we have the final thing is just the topic of the meeting. So, and then people ask, hey, what's your favorite movie and why, or what'd you do a year from now and why, or whatever whatever the question might be. And then we randomly pick, well, we get volunteers first, then we randomly pick people. So we'll get probably 20 people that will share what they did or what their favorite movie is, or whatever the question was. And so it's very upbeat, very fun, and it's designed to just basically keep that camaraderie, keep that culture alive within the company. And so we do that again on a weekly basis. And then in addition to that, we have a leadership team meeting each week, in which we cover some more of the nuts and bolts of the company, the different goals and how we're proceeding with those. But that's more of a structured meeting, whereas the team meeting is more of a fun meeting.
That's incredible, Jody. I mean, I can definitely get that fun is so important to you, and that you take such a serious subject, a conservative subject as finance and CPAs and doing audit for benefit providers, and you are like putting fun into it, right? Making it fun, making it light, and making it fun to work on at your company. So this
humor
is really incredible.
A core value that we have, right? So humor is one of our core values, which is kind of funny because when you think about a CPA firm with humor being one of their core values, don't really see that very often, but it really is, and we live up to it. So we like to enjoy what we're doing, have fun, and again, just make it an enjoyable experience for our team.
That's incredible. So in terms of systematizing, because that's the way you were able to grow, is by systematizing, by documenting your processes and procedures. So from your viewpoint, you are a person who made it, you're a CEO, a co-founder that made it, meaning you were able to scale your business from 2 people to now you have 60, and all virtual. So that allows you to basically work from anywhere in the world, especially using virtual, blurry background. Nobody knows where you are. You can be right now in the Caribbean and we wouldn't know. So, you have the ability to do that. What advice would you give to people that are looking in terms of systematizing their business, in terms of writing their processes and procedures and waiting to write it, or don't think that it's important? Why is it important to have really well documented processes and procedures?
It's extremely important because the whole time when you actually start, if you want to scale, in my opinion, if you want to scale a business properly, you really have to make it so that the next person coming along can do that same job as quick or better than what you did it. And so if you hold all the knowledge, it's going to be very difficult to scale a business. If any one person holds all the knowledge, it's going to be hard for them to transition their position. And so systemizing it is extremely important. So documentation, we do documentation, we do video recordings, we do, really, checklists, you name it. We actually break it out. We break it out by client, we break it out by position and task. There's a lot of different things, and it's a pain in the butt to put that process together. But you have to do it. You have to take really small steps at a time in order to do it. And a lot of times it really depends on the person, right? So if I'm a champion of it, then it makes it real easy for me to actually go through and do the processes. But to be honest with you, I can't stand details. So I'm a CPA that doesn't like details, right? So it was very tough for me to do it because I would always make reasons why I wasn't going to write that down or do that video or whatever, or maybe I'd start it and not finish it. So what was really important and what helped us trigger that is that we found somebody on the team that does enjoy doing that type of thing. And with that, we made them the focal point. So they were the person making sure that everything got, the process got put in place. Everything was documented. And then with that, it was just that much different. It was night and day different from how we were able to actually start putting the process together and make them really systemized. Because again, a lot of it was in my head. A lot of it was in Adam's head. A lot of it was in all the different CFOs' heads. And at that point, you had maybe a company that had 5 different ways of doing things. And it was just not something that was scalable at all. But once we actually determined, hey, this is what we're going to focus on, and this is what we're going to make sure we made Jamie, our accounting director, we made him in charge of processes. He loves processes. And with that, we were able to document everything, and then growth really started picking up. We initially started when we were offering the CFO service. I might have mentioned we were picking up maybe 2 to 4 clients a year back from 2000 and probably 7 all the way to 2011. We pick up about 6 clients a month right now, and there's no way we could actually do that if we didn't have the processes in place, because we're constantly hiring new people, and we've got to bring those people up to speed pretty quickly. And if the processes weren't in place the way they are documented, there's no way that those individuals would have even a snowball's chance to actually do well with the position. And that's why going from zero, or scaling from zero to whatever, if you want to do that, you've got to have the processes and systems documented.
Absolutely, 100%. And what's your secret of getting those processes followed by all?
Well, it's important that they go to those processes. So whatever you're documenting in, whatever software you're in, you got to make sure that they're visiting that on a regular basis. There's got to be a reason there. So maybe it's a checklist that you're managing, and Jamie oversees those checklists, so he can see exactly how many are done, what percentage of the documentations, and then he can follow up with the accountant that's actually responsible for that checklist to make sure that they've done their job. And so with that, it just kind of creates that need every time that they're going back to the same place, same location to do something, and then updating it on a regular basis as things change is important, because again, we bonus and incentivize our team on the profitability of the client satisfaction, and we always tell people that their job is to make their job worthless. And it's kind of funny when you think about that. Make my job worthless. What does that mean? Well, that means make it so that if you won the lottery tomorrow, someone came in, they could pick up where you left off. And by doing that, you make your job valuable. And so by making it worthless, it becomes valuable. And that's something that's very difficult for a lot of people to understand. But once it happens once or twice, where you have somebody that's important leave a position, and then they see that process in play and see how it's difficult, and how the new person's fumbling around, or maybe even they're trying to fumble around and figure out what happened. I think they start getting it, and they start getting it to to let them know that, hey, I need to do my job in order so when the next person comes in, whether I move up in the company or move out, that they don't have a problem taking over my position. And ultimately, the client doesn't see any difference.
Absolutely. That's so well said. And I think also it's like true for any company that we work with in terms of systematizing and writing their processes. It starts from the top, and you just show that. You have that. It's part of what you want. It's part of what you believe in. It's part that is important to you, because if it wasn't important to you and to your business partner, this wouldn't happen, because it's kind of like you said, but you said it yourself. You are you don't want to go into details. You're a big picture, which is totally okay, but you still value the use of processes and drive it through your leadership to make sure that people are actually using it. So I think that is a key ingredient, which that's what I got from what you were saying. It's you agree with it. You definitely want to enforce it, and then you use it with your staff and make it as part of the day-to-day operations. You have actually somebody in charge of processes, makes sure that those processes are being executed. So then it becomes part of the culture. So any new person that you hire is going to use those processes, because that's the way you do it. That's the Summit CPA way of doing things.
Yeah, for sure. And I tell everybody, when people ask about what makes us successful, there's always 3 things, in my opinion. And one is team. You have to have the right team in place, because no matter what kind of process you put in, if they're not going to follow it, they're the wrong team member, right? So you have to have the right team. You have to have the right technology, so again, team and technologies are hugely important. And the third is process. So you have to have team, technology, and process. And if you have one of them out of whack, it really throws things off. So if you have a great team, great technology, no processes, you're not going anywhere. If you have a great processes and technology, but don't have a team, well, you're not going anywhere either. And the same thing with, the opposite. So, you have to have all 3 really working in harmony with each other. And that's the importance of, that's why we have a technology person. That's why we have a process director. And that's why we have a people director. All 3 are super important, because all 3 are what actually allows us to grow and to scale the way we do.
I love it. I think it's a great it's a winning model. And, from all those three, I will take the team and technology, because then you can create processes, right? Because the other two, if you don't have the team, even if you have team and processes, you can actually create technology. If you have a company that has the technology and the processes, but we have a problem with the team, it's harder to fix, because you can either train the team or you can change the team. But if you already have a great team, you have great technology. Although, you know what, Jody, it's hard for me to think that you will have a great team. I mean, great team, yes, but great technology and no processes, because the technology might be there, like you purchase everything inside. And I actually just wrote a blog about it in terms of like getting rid of some of the technology that you bought that you're not using. But you can't have a great technology without having great processes, because the technology is not going to work. You can have the potential for great technology. But I mean, I think so.
You need all three, right? So you need all three in order to successfully run your company or scale your company. Like I said, if one is out of whack, like you just demonstrated, it's hard to scale. It really is. I mean, if you don't have the right team, you have everything else in place, good luck. There's a lot of firms out there that have that or can afford that. And if you don't have the right processes, but technology and team, you're not going to do well either. So I mean, all three are really, really crucial to scaling.
I agree. So I really invite our listeners to look at this triangle of the team, technology, and processes, the TTP triangle, which we just coined, and really evaluate yourself. Where are you at in terms of each one of the corner of that triangle, and see what you can do so you can actually scale. So definitely. So Jody, if people want to talk to you, they're interested in your services. Again, you provide CFO services, like you explained in the beginning, forecasting, financial analysis, working on the finances. You do taxes, but that's not, this is like a small portion of what you do. You're really, you and your team are consultants working with businesses to empower them in terms of their finances, to make sure that they are making the right decisions, that they are on the path to being profitable and increase their profitability. Having a CFO is so important. And by partnering with you and your team, businesses can accomplish that, because they don't have to have a full-time CFO. They can have a partial CFO, virtual. And I think it's a great idea, and every business should have a CFO like that. So if they want to contact you, how should they contact you?
Well, they can obviously check our website out, www.summitcpa.net. We have everything from our, what we do to pricing. Everything's on the website. We're very transparent. If you want to reach out to me, it's just Jody at summitcpa.net. So it's JODY at summit, SUMMIT, CPA.net. And I'd be happy to have a consultation with you to kind of see if that'd be a good fit, or even help you out and kind of open our world up and show you what we're doing. That way, it may be something that you'd want to do as well. And I'm talking more on the process side than anything. It would be nice to see what's working for someone that's doing it.
Absolutely, yes. And you help businesses. You also like to help CPAs, other CPAs. So definitely let's invite CPAs that want to know what is your secret sauce and how you did it, because you definitely, I know that part of your mission is to help, and you have a podcast for it, and you want to help other CPAs. And then also, we didn't talk about the audit side of benefit plans. So you also have a podcast on that, and you help businesses with that. So an array of services that people can utilize and you can help them with. So great. Well, Jody, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. This was great conversation, a lot of great tips about how to create your virtual team and how to scale your business using the team, the technology, and the processes. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.